My father worked at the nuclear plant in Iran, and I had to choose, warn or die. In the heart of Iran's mountains, at the Natanz nuclear facility in 2010, Darius Hosseini, a 29-year-old engineer, works alongside his father Ahmad Hosseini, a veteran safety supervisor who dedicated 20 years of his life to Iran's nuclear program. Darius grew up breathing in his father's pride for work that would guarantee the nation's energy future. But his convictions begin to crumble when he discovers compromising data about systematic radioactive leaks being hidden from the government. Between loyalty to the father who raised him alone after his mother's death and a conscience screaming about imminent danger to thousands of families in the region, Darius finds himself forced to make a decision that will destroy everything he believed in. When international intelligence agents make contact offering protection in exchange for information, the young engineer discovers that some choices can't be undone, and that saving lives might mean betraying the only person who truly matters. A story about the impossible weight of choosing between filial love and moral responsibility, where truth has the power to kill as much as silence. My hand trembles when I hold the teacup. It's always trembled since that day. It's an almost imperceptible tremor, but it's there constant, like a memory my body can't forget. 8 years have passed, and I still taste the metallic flavor of fear in my mouth when I wake up at dawn. Sometimes I dream about my father's face that Friday morning. He was smiling while adjusting the Geiger counter, humming an old Persian song our mother used to sing. He didn't know I had already seen the reports. He didn't know his entire life of dedication was about to crumble in my trembling hands. We had worked together at the Natanz plant for 3 years. Me, fresh out of nuclear engineering from the University of Tehran, full of ideals about clean energy and national progress. Him, Ahmad Hosseini, the man who knew every bolt, every pipe, every safety protocol of that facility as if they were his own fingers. My father raised me alone after my mother died of cancer when I was 12. He never remarried, never divided his time between another family. It was me, him, and work at the plant. Darius, my son, he used to say as we walked through Isfahan streets on summer afternoons, one day you'll understand the importance of what we do. It's not just a job. It's our country's future. And I believed. I believed every word, every proud gesture when he showed the neighbors the recognition medals he received from the government. I believed when he said we were building a stronger, more independent Iran. The Natanz facility stretched like an underground city between the mountains. Reinforced concrete corridors, sterilized rooms, the constant hum of centrifuges processing uranium. Everything controlled, everything measured, everything supposedly safe. My father had worked in the radiation monitoring sector for 2 decades. He knew the normal levels by heart, could identify the smallest leak by sound, could calibrate equipment with his eyes closed. I worked in data analysis, compiling reports on energy efficiency and production levels. Technical, clean work that allowed me to sleep peacefully believing we were actually producing energy to light homes and power factories. It was on a Tuesday in October that my life changed forever. I was reviewing the previous month's data when I found a discrepancy in the files. Radiation levels that didn't match the official reports being sent to Tehran. On paper, everything was within safety parameters. In the system's raw data, the numbers told a very different story. I spent the entire night hunched over spreadsheets, cross-referencing information, recalculating averages. The pattern was clear. Constant leaks of radioactive material were being systematically omitted from safety reports. Small leaks that, added up over months, represented a dangerous level of contamination for the entire region. When dawn broke, I was certain. The plant was slowly poisoning the soil, air, groundwater. And someone was hiding this from the government, control agencies, and the local population. My first instinct was to find my father. He would know what to do. He had experience, contacts, moral authority within the facility. I found Ahmad in the calibration lab, focused on adjusting a radiation detector with the same meticulous patience I'd known since childhood. "Father," I began, hesitant. "I need to show you something." He looked up, and for a moment I saw the man who taught me to ride a bicycle, who stayed awake when I had fever, who cried hidden at my mother's funeral. Then his eyes returned to the equipment. "Can it be later, Darius? I'm calibrating the Sector B sensors." "It's about the radiation reports," I insisted. "I found some inconsistencies." His expression changed subtly. An almost imperceptible tension around the eyes, a stiffening of the shoulders I knew well. It was the posture he assumed when something was wrong, very wrong. What kind of inconsistencies? I showed him the spreadsheets. I explained the discrepancies. I pointed out the contamination patterns the data revealed. As I spoke, I saw my father's face undergo a slow and painful transformation. First confusion, then understanding, then a deep sadness that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him. When I finished, Ahmad remained silent for long minutes, his eyes fixed on the numbers that proved everything he had dedicated his entire life to building was based on a lie. "Darius," he finally said, his voice lower than normal. "You need to forget this." "How can I forget?" "Father, we're talking about radioactive contamination. The families living near the plant, the children playing in fields irrigated with water from here." "You don't understand," he interrupted me, and for the first time in my life I heard fear in Ahmad Hosseini's voice. "It's not that simple." In the following days, I tried to talk to other colleagues about my discoveries. The reactions were always the same: uncomfortable looks, abrupt subject changes, veiled advice to focus on my work and not meddle in administrative matters. That's when I understood, it wasn't just a monitoring failure. It was a deliberate policy of omission. And my father, the most upright man I knew, was at the center of it all. On a Thursday, while he thought I was in a meeting, I entered Ahmad's office and searched through his files. I found entire folders of altered reports, correspondence with supervisors from the capital, explicit instructions about necessary adjustments to safety data for national stability reasons. My father wasn't a victim of the conspiracy. He was one of its architects. When he arrived and found me with documents scattered across the table, he said nothing for several minutes. He just sat in the chair across from me and waited. "Why?" was all I could ask. "Because it's bigger than us, Darius. Bigger than you, than me, than any individual person. Iran's nuclear program cannot stop. Cannot be questioned. Not now. And the people who are getting sick? The families who have lived here for generations. They are necessary sacrifices," he replied, but for the first time he couldn't look me in the eyes while speaking. "Sacrifices my father made, that I am making, that you will also have to make." That night, I walked through Isfahan streets until dawn. I thought about my mother, who died of cancer at 42 after living her entire life in the region. I thought about my cousins who worked on farms near the plant. I thought about the Ahmad who had taught me that a man of worth always chooses what is right, even when it's difficult. And I thought about the impossible choice that lay before me. It was on a Friday that I received the first contact. A middle-aged man, graying hair, an accent I couldn't identify, approached me at Isfahan's Central Market. "Darius Hosseini," he said in fluent Persian, but with a foreign intonation. "I imagine you have some concerns about your work." My blood ran cold. No one should know about my discoveries except my father. "Who are you?" "Someone who can help you do the right thing. And protect you in the process." He handed me a card with only a phone number and walked away into the crowd before I could react. I spent the entire weekend looking at that card. I knew exactly what it meant. Foreign intelligence agents, probably Israeli or American, who had somehow discovered about the leaks and wanted to use my information against Iran's nuclear program. Calling that number would be treason. It would mean destroying everything my father built, his entire career, the entire foundation of our relationship. It would mean becoming a spy, an enemy of my own country. But not calling would mean continuing to be complicit in the slow poisoning of thousands of innocent people. The following Monday, I watched my father prepare for work with the same routine as always. Black coffee, precisely trimmed beard, impeccable uniform. He whistled softly while checking the documents in his briefcase, as if nothing had changed between us. "Father," I called when he was leaving. "We can still fix this. We can report the leaks internally, force a review of the protocols." Ahmad stopped at the door and turned slowly. For the first time in 29 years, he looked at me as if I were a stranger. "Darius, my son," he said with infinite sadness in his voice. "You're still too young to understand certain things. But you will understand. And when you understand, you'll forgive your father." That was the last real conversation we had. That afternoon, I called the number on the card. The voice that answered was different from the man at the market, younger, with a disguised American accent. "We've been waiting for your call, Mr. Hosseini. There's a cafe on Chaharbagh Street. Table in the back, on the left.
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
The meeting lasted only 20 minutes. They already knew everything, about the leaks, about the falsified reports, about my father's involvement. They just wanted official confirmation and access to the original documents. In exchange, they offered protection, a new identity, a new life in any country I chose.
And my Vater?
I asked. Your father made his choices, the man replied. Now you need to make yours. They gave me a week to decide. During that week, I observed Ahmad with new eyes. I saw how he avoided my gaze during meals, how his hands trembled slightly when reviewing reports, how he stayed awake in the living room during the early morning hours, just looking out the window. He knew what was happening. He knew I had discovered everything. And he knew his life was about to crumble. On Thursday, I found a letter on my desk at the office. The handwriting was unmistakably Ahmad's.
My dear son.
If you are reading this, it means the time has come to choose. I know you discovered things that must have shaken your confidence in me, in our work, perhaps in everything you believed about our family. I want you to know that everything I did thinking of you, of your future, of our country's future. Sometimes men are forced to do things their hearts reject to protect things greater than themselves. Your mother always said you had a heart too pure for this world. Maybe she was right. Maybe it's better that way.
Do what your conscience tell you, Darius. I will understand.
And I will continue loving you, whatever happens. Your father.
Ahmad.
When I got home that night, Ahmad was sitting on the porch, drinking tea and looking at the distant mountains. He seemed to have aged 10 years in 1 week. I sat beside him in silence. We stayed like that for a full hour, father and son, each lost in our own thoughts. You're going to report everything, aren't you? He finally asked. I have to. I know. Father, they said they can protect you too.
We can live together, start over somewhere else. Ahmad shook his head slowly. This is my place, Darius. This is my life.
I won't run from it now. Then you'll go to prison. Maybe be executed. Maybe. Friday morning, I called the American contact and arranged the document delivery for that afternoon. I spent the morning copying files, photographing reports, compiling everything that proved the leaks and systematic cover-up. When I finished, I went to find my father to say goodbye. I found Ahmad in the laboratory where we had first talked about the leaks. He was calibrating equipment, whistling the same Persian song as always. Father, I called. He turned and smiled, the same smile that greeted me every morning since I was a child. Leaving already, my son? Yes.
We hugged for the last time.
I smelled the familiar scent of the soap he used, felt the rough texture of his work uniform, the weight of the arms that had protected me throughout my life. Take care of yourself, he whispered in my ear. You too. 3 hours later, I was in a car with diplomatic plates, crossing the border with Azerbaijan with a false identity and an uncertain future ahead. 2 days later, the news was on the front pages of international newspapers. Radioactive leaks covered up at Iranian nuclear facility. Denunciation based on internal documents reveals systematic contamination. A week later, Ahmad Hosseini was arrested at his home, accused of criminal negligence and treason against the state. 6 months later, he died in prison. The official report said, cardiac complications. I never could confirm if it was natural death or if he chose to end his own story. Today I live in a small town in Canada, work for a renewable energy company, have a different name and a life that no one from my past knows. I learned English, French, even a little Mandarin. I go to therapy twice a week to deal with the guilt. But there are things therapy can't cure.
Like the tremor in my hand when he held a teacup. Like the nightmares where I see my Vater's last smile again.
Like the question that haunts me every night, was there another way? The leaks were corrected. The region where I grew up went through a decontamination program. Hundreds of families were relocated and received preventive medical treatment. Iran's nuclear program suffered significant delays but continued operating with more rigorous safety protocols. My father paid with his life for his complicity. I pay every day with the conscience of what I had to sacrifice to do what was right. Sometimes I wonder if he forgave me. Other times I wonder if I'll ever be able to forgive myself. The truth is that saving lives and betraying the only person I truly loved are two faces of the same impossible choice. And some choices, no matter how right they are, leave scars that never completely heal. I still dream about his face that last morning, whistling an old Persian song while adjusting equipment he knew was lying.
I still taste the metallic flavor of fear in my mouth when I wake up at dawn.
And I still tremble when I hold a teacup, remembering the impossible weight of choosing between warning the world or dying in silence beside the man I loved most in life.